Hello YouTube, today we're going to be talking about dealing with windows that don't roll down. I had the unexpected problem of my driver's front window not rolling down. So I don't know if it's the switch or the window motor. I do know that these are still working, as is the window lockout. And the locks are working and the mirrors are working. So the only thing that's not working is either this switch or the motor that runs this window. So you notice my panel here is in correctly. I know a lot of you have bolts drilled through here or other fixes, and that's because whoever was working on your panel before tried to pry from the back. The correct way on these for some reason is to pry from the front. And you notice there's a tab there that slides under that holds it, so if you pry from the back, that will break off. The fronts are retained by just the retention clips. I'm going to show you how to test the switch with the multimeter. You have the white with black and the yellow. Those are going to be your hot and ground. Obviously they flip-flop depending on which way you're pressing the switch. It really doesn't matter which one you hook up your multimeter to. I'm showing you red on the white and black lead on the yellow wire. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you switch it the other way. So when I press up, I'm getting 9.8, 9.9 volts showing. When I press down, I'm getting negative 9.8, 9.9. And I jumped up, so guessing that my switch is working. Well, there's 12, so I just didn't have my leads pressed in hard enough. So that means my switch is working, it's outputting the correct power. So barring a cut in the wire somewhere in the door, which is highly unlikely to happen just on its own, I'm guessing my window motor went out. Alright, took the key out to stop the beeping. I'm going to order a window motor, and when that comes in, I'll shoot the video of how to do that. If it was the switch, obviously you just pop the switch housing out of here, and it's just held on by these little plastic retainers. So you just slide one of your plastic tools in there to pop it out. You could use a screwdriver, but obviously higher chance of breaking the plastic if you use metal. But anyway, just pry those away and that'll slide out. And I want to say these switches are fairly inexpensive to replace if you were needing to do that. Same thing with the lock switch, it's just retained here in the back, and if you had a problem with your power mirror, it's right there. So I'm hooking that back, everything, and like I said, it goes in back retainer and then press in the front. Just the reverse of the removal. Alright, to get the door panel off, I've shown this in a lot more detail in other videos, but basically we're going to pull this out of there. There's going to be a Torx bolt, and this will pop out. There may be plastic retainers on it if they're not already broken on your car. They don't seem to matter if you do break them. When I get this off, I'll film it so you can see what they look like. I don't remember if mine still has them or not. Then there are 7mm bolts. There's one there. Some models, there's one here. And then there's like 2 or 3 across the bottom of the door. And then this panel will lift straight up. You don't need to pull it out, it just goes straight up. So this is what it looks like when it's out. These are little plastic retainers I'm talking about. A lot of the ones I've seen, they're already broken off. They don't seem to matter as far as once you put the bolt back in. These clips aren't really what's holding it in place. And if you've seen my other video, this is what the pin looks like that opens the door. So some of the PDs remove that pin from your door handle in the rear, and if you were lucky enough, like all the P71s I've bought, that's all they did was just take that pin out. So you put a bolt or screw, something in there, and it fixes it. If you're unlucky, they took out the door rods or did something else, then obviously you have to get door rods or make some out of electrical wire. So with all the bolts removed, it should just lift straight up. I don't know what that's supposed to go to. Actually, it's just a wire connector that's not connected to anything. Somebody out there know what feature this is on the higher trim models, let me know in the comments. So this is what the front speaker, factory location looks like. They called us a 5x7/6x8, which I always find amusing that they call it two different sizes. Obviously there's a big difference between 5x7 and 6x8. I just used, I don't remember now, so don't get me lying, I don't remember if this was a 5 1/4 or a 6 1/2 speaker or 6-inch, whatever it was, but anyway, I just put a little Kydex to kind of cover the hole when it's in the door so that it would hopefully get a little bit better sound out of the woofer. Yeah, it didn't really work. But anyway, you have to remove the speaker, whether you've got the factory speaker in or an aftermarket speaker, in order to get to the window regulator and motor. Here's what you have to remove: this bar there to totally take that plastic sheet off, and you have to take the sheet off or cut it to get to the window motor. So the window motor is kind of behind there, and I'm really gonna have to think about whether I want to remove rivets, because if you look at those rivets, those are huge rivets. I don't know if I have anything that big, and I'd hate to remove that piece and then not be able to get it back in securely, whereas cutting a hole in this plastic water shield that's already beat to hell is probably the better option. So I'm probably just going to cut this probably somewhere in here and here and try to just peel it back. The downside is the window motor also appears to be riveted on with those big huge rivets, so that may slow me down a bit. So this is the power for the power windows, and just to make sure, I went ahead and put the voltmeter on there and tested. There is power there when I flip the window switch, so it's definitely getting power, which means the motor's bad. The other thing could be the window could be stuck, but that's highly unlikely. I do put silicone spray in the window tracks periodically, so I really don't think it's stuck. Before you cut loose the motor and the window regulator, you need to make sure you secure the glass so it doesn't fall. A lot of people just say duct tape it. I don't know if I totally trust that or not, but we'll see. The other thing that's interesting, you start digging in your wiring. I showed you the other harness earlier that I didn't know what it was for. This looks like this is either trunk pop or possibly gas cap pop. I had an old Crown Vic that had the gas cap pop right here, but this looks like the trunk wiring, so it'd be interesting to see if I put a switch there if it popped the trunk. To get these rivets out, you gotta hit them with the center punch. Take a pretty good whack to get the centerpiece out. After you get that out, then you can drill them out. So that's how you get those rivets out. They appear to be 3/8 inch rivets. The biggest ones I've got are 3/16, so I'll be going to the parts store in a little bit. The motor is bolted to the regulator with T30 bolts. It's actually easier to remove the bolts while it's still in the door. You see that little hanger there? Keeps this from falling. Hindsight, I probably should have unbolted these before I drilled out the rivets. But sometimes you live and learn. So that's what the bolts look like. I'm going to take the others off camera. Okay, removing it from the door. Once I removed those 3 bolts, it was able to just kind of fish its way out of there. You see on the left here is the old broken one, and on the right is the new working one. And so what I'm going to have to do is cut probably right around there and solder to there. Alright, I'm hoping this will come out on camera because it's going to be tough to kind of in the way of the camera. But you see I soldered the new ones on, taped it down. This is definitely not something that's easy to film. I don't know, I probably could have, if I wasn't rushing against the rain, possibly could have figured out a camera angle that would have worked better. But basically, put this back in off camera and just tighten down those bolts and then rivet. You can see I've already connected the electrical to it, saying I made the right decision by cutting the plastic instead of drilling out those other rivets. Alright, I made a trip to the car part store and they do not have a 3/8 rivet. So what I ended up doing was using washers and 3/16 rivets, and it's holding tight, so hoping that's enough. I guess we'll find out. Alright. It was just the motor. So the process to put this back together is just the reverse of removal. But I'm happy to see that this worked out. And I'll probably duct tape this stuff that I had to cut. And it should hold up alright.